All right. To our Zoom folks, I saw I apologize for some folks who had trouble logging in. I think we were able to navigate it. And I'm also talking to you, Nora, in the Zoom world. They were, I found it was easier to enter the meeting ID rather than press the link. I don't know if it's a government Zoom link or whatever it is, but the meeting ID worked. So a couple folks got back to me. I see the Zoom attendance increase. So for the folks who are zooming in now, missed the morning portions, we are recording everything. So we'll post all this stuff. So you won't miss any of our yapping from this morning. So, all right. So thank you all. Taking a little break and had some lunch, and we're going to wrap up this kickoff day with a short little presentation and hear from some of our clients to get a sense of the scope of the work we do. And then we'll talk about what to expect tonight going into tomorrow and Sunday. I promise this is the last bit of business-like aspects to this weekend, because after tonight, it's going to be a jam-packed set of panels with panelists, and I'll get into that. So what I just wanted to do was kind of ground us before we hear from our clients. Much of this has already been discussed already, and more in depth, but especially since we have a lot of folks joining us now, this is just kind of a summation really of what we talked about in depth this morning. But also you'll see why by the end of this, it's important that we are communicating what we're communicating, because you'll see. So this is really about us. I don't think what we clarified was really our mission is to ensure justice and equity for Indigenous peoples by advocating and upholding their rights under U.S. and international law. One thing we do as a philosophy and as a bylaw of our organization is we do not support any litigation by an Indian tribal member, an Indigenous member against their own tribe or another tribe. We are not here to further perpetuate the adversarial nature of the Euro-American legal system, but to help Indigenous folks navigate it. And so what we will do is come in as a uninterested party, an objective party to help any kind of alternative dispute resolution, but we are not, we don't advocate for any, and it's actually a requirement from our board members as well as supporting our work, is to ensure that our work is to help Indigenous folks navigate the legal system, not use it against each other. And so our vision in doing this work is really to empower Indigenous communities to advocate for their own law and policy needs. So part of what we do is education, and then the second part is empowerment. We don't want to be the lawyers for all Indigenous tribes on the East Coast. We want to empower, equip them to do it themselves, and we will be the placeholder until their tribal community has legal representation that can take it from there. But in lieu of that, that's what we're here to support. And that's it. It's very straightforward. There isn't any hidden agendas. You know us three. It's our beautiful faces. Our board of directors, who we heard from, one of which is in here, who I do want to shout out. His name is Matt Plain. I also am an attorney at a private firm across the street from here called Barton Gilman. Barton Gilman, aside from being extremely supportive to me personally as an employer, a law firm, but when I left law school and they recruited me, I said, I want to do this work with the center. So whatever I'm doing, you got to support that work. And they said, without a doubt. And not only that, the managing partner, Matt Plain, agreed to join our board and represent us as an organization as we got off the ground. So Barton Gilman has been extremely supportive of our work, puts us in several states along the East Coast through their offices. So we are extremely grateful to them as well. And Matt couldn't be here, but he does send his regards as well. And so, as we mentioned, who else is doing this work? Our clients will kind of reiterate this, but this is a kind of very bold claim to say that no one is doing this work on the East Coast. But the reason we say that is because the folks who are doing this work, you'll hear them and meet them this weekend, Saturday and Sunday in particular. Or they will reference the other folks that aren't able to make it who are also doing this work. Because like I said, we're not proclaiming by any means to say we have captured the entirety of the scope. Part of the issue is that no one has casted a net to bring our indigenous practitioners and policymakers together in a holistic effort this way. So this is our attempt to do that. But as an organization, not anchored to a law school, as a standalone entity providing comprehensive free legal services, policy guidance, and nation building support, we are the only entity east of the Mississippi River doing this work on the East Coast, okay? And so we are very aware and have very close connections to folks like the Tribal Sovereignty Project at NYU and Columbia, Suffolk Law's Human Rights Indigenous Law Clinic, one of which, the director of which will be presenting tomorrow. And, you know, folks like the Urban Indigenous Collective in New York. And so we know these folks, we support these folks, but when it comes down to somebody actually needing to represent someone in court for free and understands how to navigate the nuances of Indian law, international law, indigenous human people's rights, and entering things like the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People into a legal conversation, that's not a common practice on the East Coast. And for the tribal communities that do have that support, the body of practitioners is very small. And so as we've been mentioning all morning, as we will reiterate all weekend, the need is urgent. And so we are here to kind of kick this work off, and we are open arms for that kind of support and people looking to join our work. So the need in particular is vast. Our East Coast tribal communities, as we've talked about this morning, have very unique legal and policy needs. We have urban Indians, we have indigenous communities without land, both state recognized and federally recognized. We have, like I said, U.S. territorial indigenous communities that's very unique to the East Coast, who aren't of a state, they are of a territory. So, you know, these are very unique issues: lack of access to tribal funding, resources, lack of access to public services. And until we introduce the nation building scope of our work, I personally, and I would love to learn from anyone who may know of East Coast based support services that would help a tribal community do that. And so that's why we're here. That's why we created the center. And that's what we do. I told you already the three things we do, and we stay in that lane or those lanes, and we do not stray from it. We have no problem telling somebody, I'm sorry, we don't do that, but we can send you somewhere that may. But in the scope of these three areas with our indigenous communities, it's very rare that they bring something to us we can't help address within the scope of these three areas. And so this was our growth plan and is our growth plan. Our first year was to take on these pro bono cases and projects that we have severely exceeded in our first year, putting together a couple policy publications and then hosting this gathering. So this was kind of like the bookend to our first year, was putting this together and being right here at this moment this weekend. And after this weekend, we'll kick off our second year, where we hope to double the scope of our work on all levels, and then build out the beginning of what will be a pipeline program. So working with the law school and a couple undergrad institutions in the state to see how we can build not only a scholarship program, but a undergrad to law pipeline program for Native students. And when they graduate, they will have a fellowship opportunity at the center. And so, you know, URI has done a lot of work with the Narragansetts around scholarship opportunities and that kind of work. And so we're really excited about being able to plug into that work and help expand that pipeline. You know, we are lawyers and policy advisors, but we are the product of our ancestors and the generation before us who put us in this position to be where we are. And so we operate as we do with the next generation in mind. And so everything we're doing is intentional around building out this pipeline. But throughout our next year, we want to be a little more forthright about that, not just talk about it in this sense. And so we look forward to seeing how that shakes out. And then over the next couple years, we want to build that pipeline and then create the fellowship so that I can migrate to the board and hand this off to the next generation. So when I started this as a concept to take on this role, I fought Ray tooth and nail about leading this organization as a nonprofit. But it became evident that this was the platform and the method to execute this. And so when we started it, we had an exit strategy because it's about handing this off to the next generation. And so by year 4 to year 5, we hope to help cultivate and groom the next leadership that will take the center to the next level. And then in our positions, we can help grow the center through the support system the way our board has. So the concept of the center is really this very basic chart. And so what it says is on the bottom is, and I'm not a math person, so I don't know what the XY axis is. So on the bottom, it says education and the training of our client population, which is our indigenous tribal communities, over the next 5 years. And as that progresses, you see that arrow increasing because where we're starting at the corner, bottom left, is pro bono, free legal services. And over time, as we provide more education, connect and empower indigenous communities, or help them, go to the next level from wherever they're at, or help tribal communities establish their governance structures, and now they're kind of well-oiled machines and just need an in-house counsel to help keep things in order. Those needs become more sophisticated. The legal needs become the free, kind of basic legal needs become less and less, as a need, and the needs generally become more sophisticated as our tribal communities become more and more engaged with government, policymakers, seeking funding, and have more stability. The scale of how services are charged or paid for can increase. And this is all just conceptual. We are a standard measuring ourselves against ourselves. And so we don't know how the evolution of our communities will look. And so the idea is as we educate and empower folks and tribal communities to navigate the law themselves, the need for us will become less and so and more specific. And so that's really the approach here. And time will tell. And so in case anyone is wondering, or in case anyone knows somebody, what we need is money. We are doing this for free, and we will continue to do this for free, all of this work. And as I just mentioned, this conference was kicked off with the last couple $1,000s of a $25,000 gift we got last fall to put us where we are today. We do have a tentative funding opportunity that I won't speak about yet because it's not I don't have the check in my bank account, but it is on its way, hopefully. And so, but that's certainly not enough to do what we need to do, because we only have a handful of attorneys beyond here that volunteer their time with us. And volunteer attorneys are great, but to really keep an organization like this running, you need paid staff attorneys. And so that is, a cost that we need, a paralegal to do the admin stuff, because everything you see here was done by us. Us three, our interns, our volunteers, from the printing of your name tag to the pens you have, to the print in your folders, to the social media you see, it's all in-house and all on our own dime, while we all have full-time jobs, and we're not complaining. I'm expressing the need, okay? And so this work, as great as it sounds, as amazing as it sounds, costs money. And until we can get the money we need, we will bootstrap it, because we are serving a higher purpose, and that's why we're here. But all the feel goods are great, all the thank yous are great, but until we can fund this at an appropriate level, we're gonna be limited in as you could imagine. And I'm not saying that for folks in the room or on Zoom to for a $5, $10 donation. Not to say that we wouldn't accept that. But I'm really speaking to funders who are listening, to state government who's listening or will listen, okay? And so part of the reason you want to invest in an entity like this is so that you don't have to pay us attorney fees when we take the state government or towns to court to exercise our clients' rights. And so what we want to do is kind of be proactive with our state governments, our local governments, and our local funders to help us help not only educate our own tribal communities so that they are better equipped to navigate legal spaces, but to educate our judiciary, our state reps and senators, our politicians and government employees and leaders to understand the scope of what's coming. We are, and you'll hear from our clients, we are not kidding around when we're saying we're here to help our tribal communities exercise their full rights to their potential. And that means we're gonna knock on doors and serve subpoenas and summonses to folks that they didn't think, oh, I thought I knew him. Why would they? And so we want to be able to be proactive and kind of address things from both sides, so that if and when something were to come up, the other side doesn't dismiss it and then end up being in a worse position. All of that to say is that for funders who are supporting the rights of Indigenous people, or say they are, need to fund us. That's the most straightforward way to say it. And so we are a very lean and clean operation. We have just a team of attorneys who also double as administrators. We have a flexible, back-end operation. And so all we really raise money for is to pay for litigation fees, costs. The judge said earlier this morning about coming into this door so they can be the great equalizer. Well, getting into this door is hard. You know how much it costs to file a claim in federal court? A couple $100, right? And that's just to file the claim. You didn't pay your attorney who filed the claim, right? That's another cost. And then you might need transcripts because there's additional hearings. That could run you a couple $1,000s, depending on how many transcripts you need. And this is all before you got your first hearing. And so, until you go through those motions, you don't really understand the severity of the need. And so we're trying to kind of get ahead of that in that sense. And so a litigation fund is something you'll hear more about, especially over the next year, because it is the gaps in access to the courts that really boils down to money. It's fees, it's court fees, it's transcript fees, it's everything short of attorney fees. And so the litigation fund becomes a very critical aspect of our work, especially our legal services. But in the nation building side of our work, one of the things we do is we help tribes who are interested in pursuing federal recognition through the petition process. And that costs money. Even the process of preparing to file costs money. So this is really about filling those gaps and paying the staff to do it. And then making sure we can continue our annual gathering, which, you know, is critical to bring people together, especially on an annual basis. And so if I haven't expressed it enough, it is really about funding this work to help move it forward. And that could look a variety of different ways, is, you know, giving directly, underwriting a portion of our work, or providing, you know, any kind of unrestricted or scaled down funding, but also being just promoting our work. When you talk to friends and say, just direct them to our website, direct them to our socials, and let the work do the talking, you know. But if they're looking to help an organization that provides this type of law and policy support, we are it. And so let me stop there. And what I would like to do is shift here into a couple client testimonials, so you can just kind of hear firsthand from somebody other than me about this work. The first client we were going to have wasn't able to make it this morning, but I actually am personally representing her, and for the sake of the confidentiality of the case and the nature of the case, I won't say her name without her being here to do that. But this is a federally recognized tribal member who had a matter that fell outside the scope of the tribe. And so it was a personal matter that needed personal representation. And so we were referred by another tribal member, and we took the case. And so now we are representing her in her matter. And so that is just our example of this kind of direct representation. And so that's a state court matter here in Rhode Island. And so we will now play a video from another client. I will let Nora cue that up.
Can you see that, Ty?
Yes.
Marianne Goldberg Matthews, Councilwoman for the Manassas Tribe on Block Island. As a councilwoman, I have been working with a handful of other tribal members to do our work toward nation building. Our tribe has been around for centuries, but we have never operated as a formal tribe. So we're looking now really to make a more effort, concerted effort to formalize and be recognized, to remove some of those systemic erasures that have given us this lack of appearance and lack of visibility on island. Our goal is actually to pull the community together to then create assets and opportunities, repatriate our tribe with assets and historical stories, provide repository and claim some of those lands that would provide a useful space for the tribes, nations to actually assemble and develop a future. It was critical for us to make sure that we legitimized our claims and be sure that we didn't do things that actually maybe would have hurt us in the end. As you know, common folks, we tend to do things that make sense, but the law doesn't necessarily agree with what common sense is. So to protect ourselves, we've been able to take advantage of the services of the center, phenomenal for creating a stronger community and just establish a nation. There is no other entity that I think in the state that I'm aware of that would be able to do helpful to us in a knowledgeable way. So for us, this was a fantastic opportunity to take care of the one and only that I know of agency that can provide that services. There are internet services and there are agencies and alliances that are out there, but I'm not certain that they would have been able to provide this level of support for us.
Great, thanks. And so Marianne, you'll meet on Sunday, and she represents a version of a form of recognition as localized as the town island of Block Island. That city not only works closely with her and the tribe, but they're actually also want to gift, which is a rare occasion. They want to work with the tribe to give them a space to build a park and have ceremony, but also have public use. So that's an example which we'll dive deeper into this weekend between a municipality and a tribal community as a form of recognition. But they're not like state recognized. They're certainly not federally recognized. But there are benefits that flow from a recognition at a very localized level. And so that's just important to mention. And so we'll hear more about her this weekend and that aspect of recognition. So next up, we'd like to bring up Nicole Luz, and she'll come up here. Now get out of the way.
Good morning, Mr. Casacabo. As Dr. Taino mentioned, my name is Nicole Luz Caban. I am a Borinquen Caribbean ancestry member of the. Am I talking loud enough? I'm sorry. No, okay. Sorry. I am Boricua and I'm from the Caribbean. I am here today to speak upon the help that I received from the organization that is represented today. I'm sorry, I'm nervous, obviously. So I was able to meet Dr. Taino, and he was super helpful in helping me with a really difficult situation after my son had passed away. I had to organize my paperwork, and basically I had an issue in the past that was sitting on my record that was on there because when I was younger, I did not have an agency like we have luckily recently had locally, like he said, the past 2 years. I'm here to assist Indigenous people with legal matters. So when I was younger, I had no representation. I went into the courtroom thinking that justice was just going to be served because that's the way it worked. And like he has spoken upon today, if you don't have certain things like money, maybe, you may not get the services or the justice that should be yours just because, right is right. But that's not how it works here sometimes in the United States. So without his help, I wouldn't have been able to deal with getting some of the assets that were my son's because of my record. He helped me make sure that even though it was cleared up, it was clear enough to be able to go ahead and apply for licenses and things that I needed to be able to completely close off my son's time here and bring everything full circle to be able to honor him and what, he was trying to do here in a good way. So I am extremely thankful and appreciative that we do have people here that are taking the time to offer these services to us because we just don't have the capacity sometimes in life, things aren't always fair. And without the help of people who can figure out these legal jargon and things that are like almost a foreign language to us, we fall short and we don't receive the justice we deserve, and we can get depressed, we can get real frustrated because we can't believe and understand how things can't be just by being a good person and by trying to do the right things, how we can fall into these places, and to know that there are people who are standing up for that and not saying, well, justice is cool and all, but where's the money? You know what I mean? So I'm super thankful again and have so much gratitude for the work that they do. I know there's probably lots and lots of long nights and hair pulling that goes behind all of that. And to be able to be able to have that help and not just have to deal with whatever I can get because it's just good enough because of my social economic status I didn't ever think I would see that in my lifetime anyway. So I'm extremely grateful for all of their work and time. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Next, we'd like to play, I think, one more video from Dr. Flores.
Usakasakabo, da irile, adahiabo, da traha, taino, borike. Hello, everybody. My name is Dr. Darlene Flores. I am Taino from the island of Boriken, and I am also a community activist. I'm a member of Indigenous Peoples Day Newton. I'm a medicine keeper, and I'm also an advisor to the regional chief here in Massachusetts. I reached out to the center since I do a lot of activism work and intertribal things. I reached out to them regarding nonprofit status and how to properly form a nonprofit and all the legalities that have to do with nonprofits. I reached out to the organization because I felt like I needed to have a representation from the Indigenous community, knowing that the people that I'm serving are Indigenous nations. And I felt that they could represent me and advise me better than a non-Indigenous person, especially when I do the work with the intertribal community and different activities that I do here. As of right now, I don't really know any Indigenous attorneys or organizations that do this type of work. I probably would have maybe not even thought about or contacted anyone because I'd rather go to my folks first. And I feel like the representation of having Indigenous leaders, especially in law, is super important.
Great, thank you. Jen, did you want to add anything to that? I know you worked with Dr. Flores.
Yes, I did have the pleasure of working with her and continue to work with her. And Dr. Flores is a really great example of somebody who's in the community doing a lot of great work already, who just needed, legal administrative support to be able to formalize the work that she's doing. So, we're really excited to be able to help her formalize her organization on that level.
Great, thank you. And last but certainly not least, the Sagamore, William Guy.
Aquini.
Aquini.
I am Sagamore William Windsor Thunder Guy of the Pokanoket tribe of the Pokanoket Nation. I guess my journey first meeting these gentlemen here, who I'm honored to be associated with, and of course, with Jennifer. Started, I guess, with the affiliated tribes, of which I was Sagamore of the affiliated tribes of New England, and that's where I met Raymond Two-Hawk, Sachem Raymond Two-Hawk Watson. And from that, we we chartered the FANA, which is the Federation of Aboriginal Nations of the Americas. And that's when I met Taino. All right. And through that, the different processes that we were going through, we found that the more we learned about indigenous law, the more we didn't know. And so basically, the help in repatriation some of the lands that belong to our tribe and nation back to our tribe. We started back, I guess, in 2015. I think 2013, we chartered FANA. And through that, we made a couple of trips to the United Nations, and we did some presentations for the Census Bureau and different organizations up there. And this is when we realized there was a lot of complexities of law, international law, federal law, that we weren't aware of. And we discovered that basically we were already sovereign as far as international law is concerned, and also that we were provided for in the Constitution of the United States before they were federally recognized tribes. And so basically we used that there to take and obtain some of the, I guess, perks, you would say, that were available to us, but we were just ignorant of the fact. So when we approach Social Security or the health department, they say, oh, yeah, you're right. And they would give us what we wanted, and some of them wouldn't. They would tell us, you're right, we'll give you that information, but we couldn't get that information. All right, as that was Social Security. So basically, I'm so glad to have met these two gentlemen. They took it upon themselves to take and go to law school. And said, well, we're going to pursue this thing. All right, and through that, I've enlisted their help in repatriating the land back to the Pokanoket tribe. A lot of you people probably don't know who the Pokanoket tribe is, but I'm a direct descendant of the Massasoit Osamequin on my mother's side, and on my father's side, I'm a direct descendant of Anawan, who was his 5-star general of the nation. All right, and so as a kid coming up, it was drilled in my head, you're a direct descendant of the Massasoit, but you can't talk about that. You can't say you're Pokanoket because it's against the law. On my father's side, my grandparents were born 1816 to 1875. And my grandmother would always tell me with her own lips, you know, my people come from Anawan, and told my daughter the same thing, and my wife. And so this was drilled in my head early on in life. And I said, well, gee, you know, I've never received anything, you know, from having all of this here notoriety. What's the problem, you know? So basically, when we were going through the process of developing our court system, so forth and so on, these gentlemen here decided they were going to go to school and learn more about indigenous law. And that's when we found out that we come under Article 3 of the Constitution of the United States. And basically, we were provided for there before there were any federally recognized tribes. And so this is why I pursued them in this aspect of international law, federal law, state law, very complex. And we needed a vehicle to take and attain our rights so that we can move forward and receive the things that we are supposed to be getting, that we should have been getting all along. And that's happening through the Center for Indigenous Peoples' Rights. And I'm so glad and happy to met you people and work with you through these years. I should mention, I guess, that I am also the Superior Chief of FANA, and in which aspect we represent over 5,000 Indians down the East Coast of the United States. A lot of people are unaware of that. And we are first contact, we are tribes of first contact nations. All right, so that is one of the criteria of belonging to FANA to begin with, and the United States government is well aware of who we are. Thank you.
Thank you, Sagamore. And just to kind of give another little trailer to the movie, tomorrow, our afternoon, after lunch tomorrow, will be a field trip to the Mount Hope property, Patumtuck, where we'll talk more about our representation of the tribe and our ongoing work with the institution that is going to convey that land. And so with that, I hope it was a good little kind of quick exposure to the breadth of our work. It really ranges within the 3 tiers of what we do. And so that is also a signal to those here and listening that we are here and able to support you. And so with that, I would like to wrap us up here for the day and kind of just give us a teaser about a little bit more information, enough teasing, a little bit more information about the weekend so that everyone is ready to rock and roll starting tomorrow. So first things first is tonight at Roger Williams Park Casino. For those who are not from here, it's not a real casino, it's just the name of the building. The Roger Williams Park Casino here in Providence is from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. will be a kickoff reception. Everyone here is welcome to come. Those who were coming in person but couldn't, and so you're here remote, you also all are welcome. It will be a joint reception. You may have caught some of this in the promotion leading up to here. It is a joint reception with Imagining America, which is a national convening of academics, artists, practitioners, community members who come together in cities like Providence, where there's an abundance of colleges, art institutions, community placemaking organizations, and entities, and they meet and brainstorm and work through community anchor institution, campus community projects, as well as lifting up best practices in this city. So it's a big conference. There's a lot of people downtown right now, and we're all going to party and kick off this weekend tonight. So hopefully you all are able to join. Your badge is your pass to get in because they want to make sure we can identify who's who. You don't have to wear it if it messes up your fit, but you would be good having it. And so that is tonight. Starting tomorrow, we will be at Roger Williams University, their downtown Providence campus. So this courthouse stares directly at Kennedy Plaza, which is the big bus hub downtown here. And so if you came out of this courthouse and walked down the street to your right, which is Washington Ave, about 6 blocks maybe, the corner of Empire Street in Washington is the big building you'll see, Roger Williams University. The address is 1 Empire Street, should be in your confirmation emails, all that stuff. We will be on the 2nd floor. You'll see signage when you get there, so it's hard to get lost. And we will have all of our programming there. And just as a reminder for this weekend, we will start in the morning with a panel on litigating at the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights Court. And for those who are unaware of that court, it is an international forum to bring claims against the United States or a nation state when you are exhausted from federal remedies. And we will be joined in that panel by Nicole Friedrichs, who is the director of the Suffolk Law, Human Rights and Indigenous Law Clinic. She recently won a victory in the court on behalf of Guatemalan indigenous radio broadcasters who are being censored by the government. And then we'll be joined by Andy Reid, who is also here in the back there. And Andy is co-counsel among many other things, but which you'll learn more about him. But right now, at the moment, he's serving as co-counsel for the Onondaga Nation, who are whose petition was, I believe, accepted for oral arguments maybe 10 years after it was filed, I think, something to that effect. No, I think the petition to that was just accepted for oral arguments was filed how long ago? Right. So if you didn't catch that, it's about the land theft and the destruction of the land too. As a disclaimer, before I moved to Rhode Island, I lived in Syracuse. And so I know the Onondaga Lake very well, which is historically, I believe, one of the most polluted lakes in the country at one point in time. And it's gone through this entire kind of environmental cleanup process, but it's a sacred lake to the Onondaga Nation. It's been completely destroyed. And that's part and parcel of their claim against the state of New York and the federal government. And so they will kick us off in the morning. And then we're going to go into a panel about the repatriation of ancestral artifacts. So we'll learn from a Taino elder who's doing work around digital repatriation with an organization called Carrying Our Ancestors Home out of UCLA. And then, like Tuhawk said, we'll be hearing from the Prime Minister of the African Diaspora, who is leading an international class action lawsuit that he'll talk more about for restitution against. I don't know if anyone's seen the scene from Black Panther when the first one, when Michael B. Jordan's in the museum and he's asking the museum lady, like, tell me about this item. That scene was generated from the work they've done. He has successfully repatriated items from the Louvre and maybe, I believe, the Museum of England as well, back to African tribal communities. Why you may be asking that's of interest to us is because, as the Sagamore alluded to, one of our first efforts before we realized legal pathways towards repatriation was trying to reclaim wampum belts that the English crown holds. And so we were already intrigued about this work around repatriation. And so, as Tuhawks mentioned, the Prime Minister was great about roping us into this. And then they will set their eyes next, which is where we serve on that legal subcommittee. They will set their eyes next on American institutions that hold that African artifacts. So we're just fortunate to kind of be in that space and also kind of connect dots with long-standing repatriation efforts happening here with American Indian communities. So we know we're not at anywhere, we know we still have a lot of catching up to do in this body of work. And so it's very exciting for us and to be learning from him, as well as Kimberly Toney, who is at the John Carter Library, Brown University. You want to talk a little bit about Kim?
Sure. Kimberly is a Nipmuc tribal member who specializes in work in libraries and collections.
Yeah, great. And then we'll have lunch. And then after lunch, buses will pick us up from downtown campus and take us to Patumtuck. And then we'll have a presentation from the Sagamore and Chief Dancing Star and their tribal members. We'll talk a little bit about the work we're doing around this land back effort, our preservation land trust that we're working on. We can't really get into too much details because these are active negotiations, but we will share as much as we can. And then the buses will bring us back here, and your Saturdays afternoon and evenings are your own. And then we will come back Sunday morning to hear from Cacique Jorge Estevez, chief of the Iguayana band of Tainos from the Dominican Republic. We know it as Quisqueya. And Chief Red Spirit from the Wabauquasa Nipmuc, who will talk about their efforts around language preservation. Then we will get into our panel around the forms of recognition. So we'll have Cacique Phillips from the U.S. Virgin Islands, who I mentioned, who has the recognition from the governor there and will be the first indigenous tribal community from a U.S. territory seeking federal recognition, and we're excited to help them in that process. Cacique Roberto Mucaro Barrero, who is a staple at the United Nations, a longtime Taino advocate, one of my mentors, and has been helped broker that recognition with the Virgin Islands governor. So he is, and he leads the United Confederation of Taino Peoples, as well as our very own Destiny Flores, who is, there she is. Yeah, Destiny is a second-year law student at Roger Williams and a member of the Piro Manso Tiwa Indian tribe in New Mexico. They are acknowledged by the state of New Mexico, but her tribe has been in the federal petition process with the BIA since she's been a kid. And so she has witnessed the petition process that they are still in as a tribe. And so she will be speaking about that from her experience. And then we'll hear from Marianne Matthews, who we heard a little bit about, and the Manasean folks. And then we'll hear from Chief Darrell Waldron from the Seekonk Wampanoags, who has a bill right now in the Rhode Island State House for state recognition. And then we will end our Sunday and the weekend with the Pipeline Practitioner Development Panel. And that will also have Destiny Flores and Dean Gregory Bowman from the School of Law and Rodina Cave Parnell. Rodina is the director of the Pre-Law Summer Institute, PLSI. That panel will actually be moderated by Samantha Maltese at Harvard Law on our board, who is an alum of PLSI. PLSI, if you don't know them, is the summer bridge program for Native students attending law school. They have, I think, close to about 40 seats every year funded for Native students who are going to law school as a bridge program. And not only are they never full at capacity, but are severely underrepresented by East Coast tribes. And so what we are hoping to do, again, in the spirit of blowing up this pipeline development process, is having Rodina really kind of shout from the mountaintops around the urgency and the need to get East Coast tribal representation in the PLSI and then eventually into the field of law. And so, so we're really excited to have her here. And she's, unfortunately, because she's at another conference, she's going to fly in tomorrow while we're at our field trip. So if there's anyone here or anyone listening that is a tribal education person, either in your tribe or an advocate for education within tribal community, please let me know. She would like to meet with you specifically. And so we'll set that up. I'm just putting that out there. Please find one of us and let us know. And we'll make sure that we set a time for folks to kind of, chit chat with her in a private space somewhere. Because she's very intentional about making sure we get East Coast tribal community representatives in law school and eventually in law. And that will be our weekend, and we will wrap it up. And so that is our day today. I want to thank everyone for dealing with the kind of dry, business-like aspects of today. But I guarantee you tomorrow and Sunday are going to be action-packed, going to be straight. As soon as we eat breakfast and burp, we're going to hit the ground running. So thank you all again, and I hope to see you tonight to have a drink and chit-chat, and then we'll be up bright and early tomorrow. Thank you again to the federal court and Chief Judge McConnell, Nora, Raina, all the court staff who helped make this possible today. We appreciate all of you. And we will see you all this weekend. Thank you.